Hey everyone, welcome to the Game Vault review of the Callisto Protocol. I'm Captain Beefy, as always with the Game Vault, and we're going to talk about this brand new game from Striking Distance Studios and discuss the good, the bad, and mediocre within the game, because there's a little bit of each, and we're going to look at all of that real quick. So let's start off with a little bit of history about this game. Glenn Schofield, the creator of the game, was also in charge of the Dead Space franchise back in the day. The original came out in, was it 2008? So we're looking at 14 years ago. The original Dead Space came out. I was a huge fan of the original Dead Space, the second one as well, and the third, not so much, but you know, we all know that story. So I went into this game with massive expectations as far as what I would get from it, and some of it I got, and some of it not so much. So let's start off with the positive. First and foremost, graphically, this is a beautiful game. It is almost photorealistic at many times, where, especially during cutscenes and even during gameplay, you'll look at these characters, and you know, if you know the actors like Josh Duhamel and all that, you'll see his face there, and you're like, yeah, that's him in a live action movie. I mean, that's how good it is. The sweat beading on his face. We get an example right here, actually. You can see him. So graphically, it's just phenomenal. The set pieces are well done. From time to time, they get to be a little repetitive, and they don't really pop like in some games as far as when you're in a different area. But for the most part, even though they might not differentiate themselves too much, they're still gorgeous looking set pieces, and the use of lighting in the game is fantastic. The lens flares, the glare, you know, you walk into a new area and the light is just shining directly at you, so, and there's a light mist and you can't see what's going on, so that just builds up that tension that you find within the game, and it's fantastic. And another great thing they did is the sound in this game is phenomenal. Music's great, but the sound design, I played it really loud on headphones, late at night on a big screen TV, not sitting too far away from it. I was completely immersed in the game. You hear footsteps, squishing sounds, dripping water. You'll hear stuff like, there was a point where I was attacked by a few of those necrophages, and I shimmied my way through a tight area to get away from them because I was outnumbered, I was low on health, low on ammo. And when I got to the other side, I could hear them scampering through the walls. And I was like, oh my God, I am not going to escape this. These guys are going to kill me. It was utterly terrifying. So there is that horror element in the game. Although the game leans a lot on action, there still is some horror to it. And, but not as horrible as like the original Dead Space, wasn't it? And we're going to talk about that a lot. We're going to compare things a lot, because this is, you know, every review out there talks about it being a spiritual successor, and I can't not say the same thing, because in essence it is a spiritual successor to the game. I've been wanting a remake or a relaunch of the series for years now. I've been talking about it with friends, and when I heard about this, I was just absolutely thrilled to hear about it, because I knew that this would be something that I'd be interested in. And if you like horror survival games, and you like sci-fi games, and you like that alien vibe, it's got a little alien to it, it's got a little what do you call it, Blade Runner in that city in the very opening part, and then some Event Horizon. There's all these different sci-fi movies that it draws from and that you get a feel for, and I think that it blends it all together very, very well. Another great thing about the game is the lack of a HUD. Everything is integrated into the suit that he wears. Like when he first is taken prisoner, he gets this implant put in the back of his neck, and much like Isaac's implant from the Dead Space series, it shows his health, and then slightly above it, it shows how much power he has for his GRP thing, which is like like the telekinesis from the old Dead Space game. So you've got those HUD displays on the actual character, which is great in a third person game. You don't have anything jumbling up the screen. There's no markers as far as where you need to go. There's no waypoints. There's no even items on the screen when you come up to them that you can loot. They're very discreet about it. You know, it's not this big glowing thing. It's just this little white light that could be anything. You know, and if you're not paying attention, you can pass it by right away, and then boom, that's it. The voice acting, the worst of the voice actors is very good. The rest of them are great. So, and I'm not pointing anybody out in particular. I'm just saying the voice acting overall is fantastic. Sometimes there's a little issue with the syncing of the lips and the dialogue. So, you know, that gets to be a little problematic here and there. But for the most part, that works out very well. But yeah, the voice acting is great. The character models are fantastic. The set design is great. All of that, it's got all the bells and whistles. It's very shiny, very pretty, sounds wonderful. Now, getting to the mediocre parts, and this is where it hurts a little bit, is the combat. Combat in this game is strange, unique, and it probably could be something good, but it just needs some refinement. I imagine if this game is a success and it spawns another iteration, you know, a part 2, then we might see that combat system really flourish. The way it's designed now is the game focuses on melee combat as well as ranged combat, whereas Dead Space was ranged combat. It was all about shooting off limbs and picking apart your enemies from a distance, impaling them on the wall, that sort of stuff. This game focuses, one of your main weapons that you get early in the game is a police baton that's electrified, and you've got to fight a lot of these guys with that baton. And it can be challenging because they come at you fast and they'll come swinging, you know. So I'm used to games now that require you to roll out of the way, parry, block, dodge, that sort of thing, using like a square button, circle button, whatever, you know, depends on the game. So this game's method for combat uses the two sticks, basically. It uses the L stick is your dodge stick. So when you're going into combat and somebody's taking a swing at you, you either push left or right to dodge. And it really doesn't matter which way you push, it's just you have to have that timing down right and you'll dodge the attack. And then you can go, like if you go left first, then you go right, and then you go left, and you're dodging left, right, left in a sort of a rhythm game type pattern there, which is cool. And when it works great. You know, it's a lot of fun because you're like, oh, you missed, whoop, you missed, whoop, you missed, and then you whack, 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 hit him with your baton, and you know, go back when he's back to dodging again until he's dead. So it works out okay in that regard. It's a little clunky at first. It will take some getting used to. I think it's the kind of fighting system that you're either going to love or hate. Personally, I'm still kind of on the fence with it. I mean, it's okay. But where it fails is when you run into a group of enemies. If you've got 2 or 3 or more enemies around you, that system of dodging just does not seem to work. You know, you've got guys behind you, guy on the left, a guy in front of you, and you're trying to dodge the one and the other 2 are hitting you, and the camera is so close on you that you really can't see around you to time a dodge from someone behind you. You're just screwed. If he's behind you, he's just going to take a swipe at you and hit you. And these guys hit hard. They hit very, very hard. So that can be a little frustrating at times as far as combat goes. You know, the guns, Dead Space was wonderful because it took tools and made them into weapons, like the slicer things and all that. They were basically a bunch of tools made into weapons. I think there was one gun that was like that you got late in the game, but for the most part they were just different types of tools, like the plasma cutter and so forth and so on. In this one, your first gun is a pistol. What do they call it? I forget what they call it now. And then you end up with a little one-handed shotgun, a two-handed shotgun, so on and so on. But it's all the weapons are very basic and not very interesting like they were in Dead Space. So that again is another thing that's like, it's okay. Looking past that though, the upgrade system is not terrible. It's good. You know, you can pick and choose what to upgrade. You can upgrade your different weapons. You can upgrade your oh, I didn't mention you get a GRP, which is like the telekinesis in Dead Space, in the Dead Space series, where you can pull things towards you, throw them, and so forth and so on from a distance using a telekinetic power in a glove called the GRP or the grip. So that's something else you can upgrade. You can build ammunition if you need it, you know, which is kind of nice because you can run out of ammo very easily. So, you know, there is an upgrade system, and it uses Callisto credits is what you find laying around the place, which is kind of funny in my opinion. I couldn't find it better. You know, I used to play games with, like, you know, scrap metal and all that. You figure in a prison like this you might have something different, but whatever. Callisto credits is what they called it. So there's that. As far as enemy type goes, that's another part of this game that really could have been better. There is a variety of enemies, don't get me wrong, but they are not very distinct from one another. They all look like big, mutated, skinned humans. Some of them have extra limbs, some of them walk a little different, some of them crawl on the ground, some of them spit poison at you and whatnot. But their design is cool, it's revolting, they're gross, you don't want them anywhere near you, but the designs are not varied enough to make them super interesting to where you see one from a distance and you go, oh, that's a spitter, or oh, that's this, or oh, that's that. Maybe it's my eyes, I don't know, tell me if you disagree down below, but that's my opinion, is that there's just not enough variety in there. A little bit of tweaking, a little bit of something else could have made it much, much better. Now, another thing, something I didn't like very much in the game, or a couple things I didn't like very much in the game, and I understand why they're there. I mean, I get it. It's a survivor horror game. You don't want it to be easy. You want it to be tough. You want it to be stressful and anxiety-inducing. I get it. But like medicine, you have an injector that you can put into your neck and fire like a shot into your neck to heal yourself. That takes a significant amount of time to do it. Your character has to kneel down to do it and inject himself. And in combat, that's bad because more often than not, you're going to get whacked when you do it. So whatever health you gained, you're going to lose some, if not all of it, from that hit. So it's almost a waste of time at that point. Reloading of guns takes a while. Switching guns takes a significant amount of time. These are all things that you really, in combat, you're really screwed with. So as you're upgrading weapons, I think one of the main things you want to focus on is clip size, just so you can go into any fight locked and loaded with as many bullets in the clip as you can, so you're not having to reload during a fight. And you want to make sure you've injected yourself and you're at a you know, in the green on health anytime you go into a new area, because if you get in there and you're hurt already, then you're in trouble, because you're not going to be able to heal yourself if there's a major amount of combat. You're just going to get smoked, you know. So that can be a little frustrating. And again, it's not a bad thing. That's just it's so frustrating sometimes, you know, especially if you're not planning ahead. Now let's move on to things I really don't like about the game, and there's just a couple of them, and they're very minor. Things like upgrading your weapons and all that. There's a whole process to it. You find a machine, you go in there. It's basically a 3D printer, and it's a little time consuming, and it's, you know, it takes a few seconds to do it, and you back out. If you're upgrading multiple things at once, you keep putting it in there, and you keep going through that and cycling through it. And that's, you know, I think that could have been done a little cleaner and a little quicker, just to keep you moving along, you know, where you just upgrade and boom, you're done. But I think one of the worst aspect of the game, and this is one thing that hopefully they can patch out and fix or make some changes to, is the save system. So the game autosaves, and it autosaves quite a bit. You'll constantly see in the bottom right-hand corner the little Callisto moon insignia as it's saving. And that's great in a game because, you know, especially a horror game, you want it to save frequently so you don't have to backtrack through an hour's worth of work when you get killed by a surprise attack. Yeah, Resident Evil, I'm looking at you, you know. So I get it, that's cool, but it's a little frustrating because if you do go into an area, let's say, and you get killed, and right before you got killed it's saved, and you were at low health or whatever, when you respawn in, you're going to respawn in that same miserable situation with that same miserable low health, and yeah, you're pretty much screwed, you know. So you're going to have to go back up a couple saves and go back to find a point where you can actually have a shot at getting through that area. So that could be a little frustrating. Now, you could do manual saves in the game, and I do recommend that. But that's immersion breaking, you know, when you have to go into a menu and save the game and all that. I do recommend doing it at the beginning of every chapter, whenever you get to a new chapter, and you know when you get to a new chapter because you get the title across the screen. At least there, so that if you totally pooch the chapter, you can just restart from that manual save and say, all right, I really screwed this up. I wasted so much ammo, or I, you know, did this and that wrong. And it'll give you an opportunity to replay a chapter later on if you want to. So, you know, that's something I would recommend doing. There's no quick save. I wish there was a quick save that you could have in addition to the auto save and the manual save, because at least then you could, you know, I'm about to go into a new room. Let me quick save, go into the new room. If things suck in there and you get killed and everything gets ruined, then, well, you can go back and reload your quick save, as opposed to the auto save that occurred in there after you ruined everything, you know. And trust me, you ruined everything. So, you know, those are my thoughts on the game. Overall, is it worth $70? It's a short game, looking about 10 to 15 hours roughly. On PC, I understand there's a lot of issues with frame rate and so forth. I'm playing it on the PS5, and I had 0 noticeable frame rate issues. Everything seemed to play smoothly. I played it on performance mode. You know, the graphics are great still in performance mode. Everything looks good. It's so rich and detailed, these environments. It's a lot of fun. But I don't know if I would, unless you're a big fan of Dead Space and a big fan of this genre, I would probably wait a month or so to buy this game, because it's going to be on sale soon, I think. It got, reviews are all over the place, I've noticed. There are guys tearing it apart. There are guys loving it. Me, I'm in the middle. I wanted this game to be a Game of the Year contender for me personally. I know it never would be on the, you know, within the market itself, but for me, I wanted this to be one of those games I look back on 2022 and go, yeah, that was amazing. You know, that was such an experience. And to me, it's so close. You know, there's some certain things that would just put it over the top. And unfortunately, it didn't deliver on all of those things, you know, especially with the clunky combat and all that. If that's another thing that could be fixed, it would be great. The callbacks to Dead Space are all over the place. You have religious zealotry, you have mutated humans, you have jump scares, visceral gore. When you get killed in spectacular, gory, and disgusting manners. And it all rolls back to that classic Dead Space game and how they did it. And so that's cool for the nostalgia factor, but this game failed to give me anything new that makes it stand out on its own. So it feels like a Dead Space clone, a well-made one, you know, but still a clone that doesn't set itself apart from the original franchise that it was based on and that inspired it. 7 out of 10. Yeah, I can see a 7 out of 10 for this game, at least for me. Tell me your thoughts down below. Have you played the game? What do you think? Is this something that you anticipated and wanted to get? Are you holding off? And was the review helpful in any way, shape, or form? I'd like to hear that down in the comments. Please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. It would be greatly appreciated. As always, I'm Captain Beefy. This is the Game Vault, and I'll see you next time. Until then, peace.